The international community cannot condemn the Afghan people to collective punishment and starvation because they failed in their mission in Afghanistan. That has been our message. And from our part, again, if we hadn't taken the measures that we have taken and mitigated the effects of this humanitarian catastrophe that is taking place here in Afghanistan, I think we would have been in a far, far worse place at this moment.
I'm wondering how long can you go on if no country in the world recognises your administration as a legitimate one? I mean, how is that possible? How is that sustainable? And don't you have an obligation, almost a moral duty under Islam, under any God, to step away if by you staying it is condemning millions of your fellow men and women to a miserable future?
Just as you rightly pointed out, the situation, the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan, the underlying causes are three that were also pointed out and highlighted by Ms. Deborah Lyons, the chief of UNAMA here, the United Nations mission in Afghanistan. She said three underlying causes. One was the dependence of the previous administration on foreign aid, on foreign assistance. The second was the underdevelopment of basic infrastructure, the lack of focus on it, on building infrastructure for sustainable growth and sustainability, self-reliance here in Afghanistan. And the third cause, the underlying cause of this tragedy is recognition of the government. So again, if we look at all three causes of the humanitarian issue, it's not from our side. It is more related to the international community. It is the moral obligation of the international community to recognize the government that exists, which is a reality. It is not going anywhere anytime soon. And this government has shown that it is a responsible actor. The politicizing of recognition is only endangering the lives of the common people.
Well, the international community says you have to show you've changed rather than just say you've changed, right? And the US Special Representative for Afghanistan, who I'm sure you know very well, Thomas West, says recognition depends on the way you behave towards Afghan citizens. At the very first news conference, you were there, acting as the translator after taking power. The Taliban's official spokesperson gave quite a few reassurances about women, about media, about insisting there'd be no revenge attacks, about an inclusive government. But none of that has happened, has it?
I think all of them have happened.
How has it happened with women? Women are still largely excluded from work. They've been told what they can and cannot wear. They've been banned from education beyond the age of 12. They've been told they must have a male relative to chaperone them on long trips, and this obviously will restrict their movement and freedoms. That's hardly the image of women walking shoulder to shoulder, which was the phrase that he used at the time, the Taliban spokesman.
Employment, no female worker that worked in the government has been fired from her job. Every single female worker of the administration is still in her job. Their jobs have been, the coming to work has been suspended. Their jobs they have not been fired from their jobs. They are being paid their salaries.
That's a very mute point, isn't it? Because if they're not doing their job and they're not getting paid for it, because many of public service workers are not getting paid, how is that a job? So they're not doing it and they're not getting paid. How is that a job?
No, they are getting paid and they do retain their jobs.
But they're not doing it.
The suspension is because this is an Islamic society and we're working on methods, on mechanisms of how to best integrate them back into their jobs. It is not because we do not want them to work shoulder to shoulder with their fellow Afghans. That is not the problem.
Even if we take the government jobs to one side, millions more women who do other jobs, who run their own businesses or have done and now can't, who were the only breadwinners in their family, and now their families don't have anything to buy to feed themselves with.
So first I answered the difficult question for you about the government. The private sector, there are absolutely zero restrictions on women working. They are working in banks, they're working in running their businesses, they are doing all the jobs that they previously held. There have been absolutely zero restrictions on the private sector from outside. That is number two. Number three, in education.
On the ground, that's just not what we're being told or even seeing. It's sort of, in a way, I'm not sure, you could say that there are no restrictions, but on the ground, the women definitely feel there are. So what do you think the gulf in this is? If every person I'm speaking to tells me something different to what you're saying, why is that?
I don't know what the fear is. I absolutely do not know why.
Do you not
why
understand
it's
any of the fear? Do you not understand why they might be fearful?
No, I absolutely do not. For schooling, again, if we look at the schooling, private schools from primary all the way to university levels, they're open for girls and women.
You're fond in saying, because I've heard previous interviews you've given, that education is available to all, but that's simply not the case on the ground as far as we're seeing it. And either we're being confronted by a whole load of Afghan people from all different parts of Afghan society, politicians, workers, rich people, poor people, who are spinning us massive lies, or there is some truth in that.
Again, girls not going to school in their personal capacity or due to fear, whether rational or irrational, is their own personal prerogative. We, from our side, the policy of the government has been very clear. There are absolutely no restrictions on any girls or women attending schools from primary all the way to higher education.
But we've spoken to teachers who've been threatened for teaching. So how does that figure? Who've been visited by armed Taliban fighters who appear to be from the administration or acting on behalf of the administration, telling them that they should not be teaching older girls or, for instance, teaching them art classes.
This is the first time I've ever heard this. I've never seen any reports.
Do you think it could be true?
It possibly could be. This is a very conservative society. Our security forces, from policy and from what I've seen and from what I'm seeing myself with my own two eyes while living here in Afghanistan, is that our security do not approach women specifically, because this is an Afghan society. We have a lot of respect for women. We do not threaten women, ever. Okay,
can I show you a video of a young woman who appeared on social media?
Sure.
It is a young woman who took part in a demonstration demanding the rights, her better rights.
Yes, I've seen that. I've seen that.
Quite well known in Afghanistan right now.
Yes. It's the.
She's saying, "Help! Help! The Taliban are at my door. We're here on my own with my 3 sisters.
Yes.
All women."
Yes, I've seen the video.
She looks and sounds quite terrified.
Yes.
She took part in a small demonstration of about 20 or 30 women. It looked from the pictures, demanding more rights. She was not alone in being visited, a female being visited by Taliban fighters. We spoke to a woman today who wasn't even at the demonstration, but her daughters were. She was in the house with children when she says about 20 armed Taliban soldiers, fighters, came into her room, came into her house. She tried to stop them coming in, saying that they were children. She's got bruises on her arm, trying to stop the door being pushed in by all these men with guns. You're a man, so maybe you might not appreciate, but as a woman, that must be utterly terrifying. I'm sure it must be terrifying if you're a man. How is that showing respect to women? Does this mean that you don't have control over all your Taliban fighters?
That video is, of course, distressing. and the incident that you've said is also horrific if it has taken place. However, if she could lodge a complaint as per law against whoever the intruders were. Was it from the Ministry of Interior?
She'd been to the Ministry of Interior and complained with the investigation unit because they took away her mobile phone and her daughter's mobile phones. And she said, I haven't done anything wrong. What are you doing? She had children there, 5, 4, who had with guns pointed at them. I don't know in what world that is acceptable, and also how you can possibly convince the outside world that you're fit for office when that is happening in the capital city. Lord knows what's happening way out in Badakhshan.
Again, I cannot confirm the incident that you're alluding to. I've never heard of it, neither through our Ministry of Interior, nor through any reputable media. The other incident, the video that you just showed me, the Ministry of Interior absolutely rejected it and called the video fake.
How is that fake? If it's fake, where is the young woman?
Maybe you can approach the Ministry of Interior and ask them how they came to that conclusion. And as for what you rightly pointed out of terrifying women and children, rousing them from their sleep in the dead of night, it happened for 20 years in Afghanistan. Foreign forces would barge into homes, kill women and children, torture their men, detain them, take them to Guantanamo and Bagram, take them to black sites, and leave the families, bomb them, and do unimaginable horror and torture, physical and psychological harm for 20 years.
Do you feel you're getting a bad rap from the West, people like me?
No, I absolutely do not, because people that have been born and bred in the West have a different set of values. They see human rights differently, they see laws differently, they see people differently. They have different perspectives of the world, and we have a different perspective. And what we're advocating is, let us understand one another. We are human beings just like you, but we are distinct, just as you are distinct. And we want to live our way of life in our country, according to our customs and our beliefs.
You've got splits within the Taliban already. I'm thinking about up north when you've got your Uzbek factions are causing problems. Is this the beginning of a split?
What happened in the north was a protest that began or erupted after a miscommunication and misunderstanding of the situation. It's absolutely calm in the north at the moment. There's no splits, and as you term it, if it means there's a split within the government, we could rightly point to the protests in the UK. Does that mean there's a split in the government?
Almost certainly. I don't think we should compare with British government.
Does that mean there's going to be an insurrection? Absolutely not. It was a protest. People voiced their concerns, and they were addressed. Simple.
So no possibility of having to pull different factions who want different things and are jostling for power. I'm thinking of how various international politicians might be looking at it and worrying.
Like the left wing and the right wing in the Western world. Does that mean there's no government? Does that mean there's a struggle for power? Does that mean the country is going to disintegrate? Absolutely not. And I understand. I mean, this has been the wish, and billions of dollars were poured into trying to split this faction-based movement. It has not materialized until this day. Okay. And it will not materialize because this is a representative government of the people of Afghanistan.
I don't know how you can call it representative if you haven't had any elections. Are you planning elections?
Representative in the sense that the people of Afghanistan have chosen this government.
Well, they haven't chosen you. They haven't chosen you. They didn't choose the people, the foreign troops who came, and they didn't choose you. They voted in elections which saw Hamid Karzai being elected and Ashraf Ghani being elected, but they haven't voted you in.
I mean, those elections are very famous or infamous for a lot of things.
Do you think they're legitimate?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so are you going to have a legitimate election?
We are the government in power. We do not plan on holding elections anytime soon.
Ever?
Anytime soon.